available because we've processed some loans since then. So
We'll be ready.
your
I wonder why we have
30,000.
different times. That's weird. And mine says 8. This still says 7:59, but we'll be ready.
Maybe it's on universal time. It says.
Okay, good morning. It is 8 a.m. on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. We will call the Economic Development Authority meeting of the City of New Ulm to order. Number one is roll call. We do have a quorum present. We'll move on to item number 2, approval of minutes.
I'll offer a motion to approve the May 9th, 2023 minutes.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 3.1, administrative activities for May of 2023.
Right. Good morning, President Betker and Commissioners. I do have several items to highlight for you this month. Note under the Section 8 program, with the Section 8 program, voucher holders can use their vouchers anywhere in the United States. And so we did have 3 voucher holders that what's called ported out to other jurisdictions. And we were being billed by those housing authorities for their payment to landlords. I did contact those 3 agencies and asked if they would consider absorbing those voucher holders into their program and releasing our vouchers back to us. And I was able to get 2 vouchers absorbed in May, and the 3rd one was absorbed in June. So as of today, we are not being billed for any vouchers outside of Brown County. So that brings money back to us that we can use here. So that's good news. Under the public housing program, I'll note for both the Section 8 and the public housing waiting lists, we did our annual waiting list update, and that's been completed. And then also note, we have a mold remediation issue in one of our apartments at Broadway House, and when Service Master came to do the mold remediation, they caused some water damage, and so there were additional repairs that had to be done. We're paying the vendors for those repairs, but Service Master is reimbursing us a total of $3,175 for the water damage caused by their employee. So just wanted to point that out. Under the EDA report, note that we were approached by the Sister Cities Commission. They have a, how do you pronounce it? Use. Person coming who has experience with real estate and economic development. So they asked if we would be willing to sponsor an internship. So we are going to be splitting that with New Ulm Real Estate. She'll spend 50% of her time there, and then the other 50% she'll be here, splitting between community development staff and economic development staff. So we did pay 25% of her stipend for the 12-week internship. And I believe she comes the end of July. So we'll have her for August, September, October, basically. So we're looking for projects that she can help us with during that time. Note under the Homebuyer Assistance Loan Program, we had a loan close in the amount of $9,500, and we received 3 applications during the month of May. And then I'll just note under the Garden Terrace, you'll note that we had negative net income for the month, and that was due to their annual payment in lieu of taxes, and then also the final invoice came in for the appliance upgrades. So expenses were higher than normal, but it should go back to normal next month. And I believe that they're all completed with the appliance upgrades over there in all 88 apartments.
Busy month. Thank you,
Yeah.
Heather.
Any questions on any of that?
If not, I'll look for a motion to approve the administrator report.
Second?
Actually, I can't make the motion.
You got to make the motion.
I will make the motion to approve administrative report. Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Moving on to item number 4.1, Section 8, HCV and Public Housing Revised Income Limits.
All right, HUD releases updated income limits every year in the spring, and the new ones have come out. They're effective May 15th, 2023. So we just need to adopt the revised income limits that we use for our public housing and Section 8 program. Just note the median income for a household of four in Brown County increased from $87,300 to $91,000. So you can see the current and the revised income limits by household size in the report.
I'll offer a motion to adopt the revised income limits for Section 8 housing, choice voucher, and public housing programs effective May 15th, 2023.
I second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Just a quick question. Does this affect anybody that are currently getting those funds?
No, it doesn't affect anyone currently on the program. What we do is we look at anyone on the waiting list and see if it changes their ranking,
Okay.
and that's been done.
Okay.
Thank you. Any additional? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 5.1, Broadway House Surveillance Camera Project.
All right. This will be a capital fund project if approved. We installed a camera surveillance system at Broadway House Apartments in 2017. That system included 30 cameras. We have found the cameras to be a very valuable tool in managing the property, but we have noticed several blind spots with our current system, so we would like to add an additional 12 cameras to be able to see certain areas that we can't see now. The current system we have only has capacity to add an additional 6 cameras, so we do need to upgrade the entire system to accommodate the total of 42 cameras. We did get an estimate on this project, and it should cost about $30,000. If we move forward with this project, we would have remaining about $320,000 in capital funds for future projects. So we have plenty of money. I'm looking for ways to spend it. More projects will be coming through. I'm still working on some other ones. And we do have to spend this money within a certain period of time. And so it's important that we keep moving along on finding ways to spend the money so we don't have to give it back unspent.
And what's the source of these funds?
Capital funds from the federal government. They give us money every year to improve and modernize our public housing facilities or properties.
Where's the host of the camera data? Where does the data go from the cameras? Are they in? You want to look at the cameras, where do you go?
There's a website that we log into to view the cameras. All the equipment is in the mechanical room at Broadway House.
You just log into a website?
We
and
just-
you
yep.
can pull up cameras?
Right at our desk, Lori and I have access to it. Mhm.
Good.
Well, I'm all in favor of keeping people safe and keeping our property well maintained, so I would move to approve the Broadway House Surveillance Camera Improvement Project and authorize staff to solicit bids.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 5.2, Public Housing Operating Budget.
Did we skip? Oh, I skipped. I went straight to the claims. Okay. And I did hand out an updated sheet for all of you. There was an error in the payment in lieu of taxes amount, so that changed a few numbers. We have 5 budgets that we approve each year. We always start with the public housing budget because it needs to be approved prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1st. So the public housing budget covers day-to-day operations of our 50 public housing units. 40 of those units are at Broadway House Apartments, and the other 10 are rental houses that are scattered throughout New Ulm. The budget proposed here is for the upcoming fiscal year, July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. And I do need to submit it to HUD by the end of this month. We work with our fee accountant, C-Neighbor, to assemble the budget into the proper HUD format. The proposed budget is pretty status quo compared to the current fiscal year. Note that capital funds are not included in the budget. Those are separate funds. For the current fiscal year through the month of May, we have a surplus of about $208,000. Part of the reason for that surplus is the federal government has been increasing our operating subsidy. And then also we had 2 positions that went unfilled for a good part of the current fiscal year. So we just weren't spending as much on payroll. We are projecting a surplus, and the updated number is $91,626. And then we have quite a bit of money in reserves to handle any out of the ordinary or catastrophic events that might occur. I know Commissioner Markgraf had a couple questions for me.
Yes. Dwelling rentals, why is there about a 21% increase in the 24 budget?
Compared to the 2023 budget?
Yeah, well, 23 budget and actual are pretty close, but we see a significant increase in 24.
I know when they put in the budget for dwelling rentals, they look at our last 6 months of rent collected, and they use that. So our rent collection is ahead of schedule. I think a big part of that is they had a large Social Security increase in 2023. And so then when we did the annual research, the portion of rent tenants paid went up based on that. So I think at the time we did our budget last year, we didn't know what the Social Security increase was going to be. That usually doesn't come out until November. And I don't know if anyone was expecting it to be as high as it was. It was a pretty big, it hasn't been that big of an increase. I can't remember what it was, 6.8% or something. Was it 8%? Yeah, it was. And it's been, if they get any increase, it's been very, very minimal for several years. So that's one question.
Okay, and you answered mine on the in lieu of taxes, but the other one was the insurance. 2022 is $4,100. You budgeted $12,000 for 23, and now we're pulling it back to $9,000.
Yeah, and I did call the fee accountant yesterday to ask her about that. And she said through April, it's about $8,100. So that's where they're getting their number on, looking at our current year.
And that was it for my questions.
Okay. It's nice to be budgeting a surplus at year end, and we had a couple years there we were budgeting with deficits at year end, so nice to be back in the black.
A resolution to adopt the public housing operating budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Second?
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, Director Flagel, please call the roll.
Commissioner Kalk,
Aye.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Markgraf,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Henn,
Yes.
and President Betker.
Yes, that motion does carry. Moving on to item number 5.3, EDA June 13th, 2023 claims list.
All right, you can see it's a little higher expenses than normal this month. There's several capital fund expenses in there that we'll get reimbursed for through the capital fund program.
Approve the expenses.
Second?
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 6.1, Westridge Place Lease Agreement.
All right, I wanted to note also that construction at Westridge Place started last Monday, so they're in the demo phase. So it is happening. And so getting ready to open and have providers lease up to rent space in our facility, we asked the city attorney to prepare a template lease agreement. So obviously there's a lot of things that aren't filled in, dates and provider name and things like that are blank on the template, and those would be filled in when we execute the leases. So we have 4 pod spaces available to rent in Westridge Place. Also, I brought the proposed rents for the spaces. They're not all the same size, so I do have 2 different rent amounts. The 2 spaces in the lower level are 350 square feet, so I'm proposing $200 a month rent for those 2 pods. And then the main floor pods are a little larger. They're about 500 square feet, so I'm proposing $300 a month for those spaces. So if we're fully leased, we'd be collecting $1,000 a month in rent. Average utilities in the building are about $600 a month, so the additional money could be put into a maintenance fund for repairs due to wear and tear and whatnot. The proposed rents are below market rate in order for providers to have a financially feasible business, and I did work with First Children's Finance to plug those numbers in to make sure it would be attractive to providers, and we found that we're comfortable with those rents. And then you have the proposed lease agreement attached. I don't know if you've had a chance to review that. If you have any questions.
I did. The current lease agreement seems to be triple net. So even though the rent is low, they are going to be incurring a lot of other expenses.
What do you
So
mean?
they have to pay for the insurance. They do have to pay for
They have to pay for
taxes.
insurance. That'll be a business expense for them, and that'll, I worked with our insurance agent on that. What he's proposing would run about $2,400 a year, and that was put into the financial model that I did with First Children's Finance. So
Do we know if that's comparable to what they pay operating in-home for insurance?
I don't know if Bill can speak on that.
If that would be a big jump for them or not?
It probably is more than they pay at home.
Yeah, and they'll be
Because of
paying
the-
for, utilities and,
And that needs to be changed. I just noticed that this morning. They are not paying utilities. We don't have 4 meters in the building, and there would be no fair way to divide those out, really. We will be paying the utilities.
Tom Firth, 1026 15th North. I am the insurance agent for the city of New Ulm, and that includes the EDA as of a few years ago. The question about the triple net. I think a true triple net, the tenants would be paying for the building insurance as well. And the city owns that building and will be insuring it. So I think Michelle's probably right that there needs to be something reworked in there if this, and I haven't read that part of it, but if it looks like a true triple net, it's not. To the question about the comparable to the in-home daycares, it's more. I can tell you that my study of the in-home daycares in New Ulm and actually in Brown County show that they're all improperly insured by and large. A lot of the in-home daycares think that their homeowner's insurance is covering their daycare, and it's not. There are certain insurance companies that will say that we allow you to run a daycare and we're okay insuring your home with a daycare, and then the homeowner takes that to mean they're covered. Big difference. The insurance company for the homeowner is not going to cover water activity liability or professional liability. There's just a whole slew of things that are gap issues with homeowner policies. So that's first of all. This is going to come as quite a shock to a lot of them who, thought their coverage was included. For the ones that we do write some insurance on for the in-homes, again, it's considerably more. The in-homes can usually get insurance for about $700 a year, $800. What we're requiring here is quite a bit more limits than what your normal in-home daycare is going to have. You can see in the insurance section that, and actually we need to clean something up there. I didn't propose the 2 million for the primary limits. Some companies will offer 2 million per occurrence. Most of them will just do $1 million. So I think just from a standpoint of people being able to find the insurance that we're proposing we require, I would make that per occurrence $1 million. That got changed, Heather, from the first draft to the second draft. And then we got a $2 million umbrella on top of that. So, we're potentially talking about $3 or $4 million worth of coverage. The city's insurance does not cover daycares. The League of Minnesota Cities wants nothing to do with cities running daycare centers.
I wonder why.
Yeah, well, it can be a problem. And so for that reason, I've intentionally suggested very high limits for these daycares, just because we all know how it works. Is kid gets seriously hurt, bottle warmer falls off a counter and severely scalds a kid's face. If there isn't proper insurance in place on the tenant, then they'll come after the city as the building owner. We talked a little bit before the meeting here that if it's possible for municipalities to form LLCs, you were out making a copy at that moment, Heather, but if it's possible for municipalities to form LLCs, that might be a good thing to do in this case. Ultimately, the buck would still fall back to the city because the city owns the LLC. So I don't know what the city's attorney would say to that. Secondly, one of the things that I would add to the wish list would be what's called a waiver of subrogation. And what the waiver of subrogation means is that if one of the individual daycare's insurance companies pays out a claim, that they don't then subrogate back against the city. Because there again, city can't send that off to the league for coverage. Okay? So what I'm getting at is there's a reason why the cost is so much is because I think it's in the city's best interest to isolate the liability to the daycares. They're all going to be licensed for what, 12 max?
Yes.
Yeah, and so let's say you got 10 kids in there and there's a fire and all 10 of them die due to smoke inhalation or something. All the parents get together, sue the daycare for improper egress, whatever. And how far does 2 million go on 10 kids? How far does 4 million go? So, I don't know, this is why I don't sleep anymore, because I lay awake thinking about possibilities, but I think we're doing diligence here. Some of the other, and this is going beyond why I stepped up here, but while I'm here, there's dog and cat liability on there as a suggested coverage. If you don't allow pets on the premises, then that would pretty much take care of that, provided one of your daycare providers doesn't decide, oh, hell, I'll bring Fifi in for the day or the week, and then that cat goes and bites one of the kids. Water activities. Water activities is basically anything that involves a pool of any shape or size, even a little kiddie pool. Certainly going for a walk to the city park, to go to Washington or Lincoln. Now, think about the walk from Westridge to Lincoln or to Washington. They're probably not going to be hoofing it to those parks. They may go out to North Park, which has a splash pad, and I wouldn't consider that to be a water activity because there's no reservoir. The water drains off. So there again, if if you don't allow pools, maybe those individual daycares won't have to buy water activities liability. So all those requirements are in here, but I think it needs to be reworked based on what your requirements are and based on what your comfort level is. Water activities liability is expensive. That could be $700 or $800 of the $2,400. Because you do have a lot of daycares in town that will march the kids up to the park, and a kid can die in a foot of water. So, questions?
Tom, can
Yeah.
you explain to me what the effect is on, you mentioned creating an LLC. Does that take some of the responsibility aside, or how does that change?
It
things?
purely adds another layer. And again, it would be a question for the city attorney more. I'm not familiar with the corporate veil or the effect of LLCs, but if there was a way to shelter the city, and
Because do the daycares, I don't know what business model they operate under. Do they create their own LLC for their own?
they can do anything they want. They can operate as an individual. The name of their daycare could be Lindsay Hen Daycare. They could be a sole proprietor, they could be LLC, corporation, whatever they want. Whatever LLC would be created by the city would be added as an additional insured to their policy. So ideally, if a lawsuit comes in, the daycare insurance policy is not only defending the daycare, but it's defending City of New Ulm, EDA, LLC. You're all piggybacking on there for coverage.
Trying to figure out if there's a benefit to the daycare operators operating as an LLC versus an individual to the city.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, because the insurance isn't written any
That
differently.
won't change the insurance.
No, it doesn't change the price, it doesn't change anything. It's more of a tax thing, or if I was a daycare operator, I wouldn't want the thing in my name. Because what else is in my name? My house, my cars, where would that start and stop? So if I was a daycare operator, I would certainly want to create an LLC. So I think it's a smart thing to do.
And we've talked, I think, once or twice on this panel about if that fee gets too high, that maybe we could subsidize a portion of it, correct? We could do that, Tom? I mean, you don't really,
It's starting to sound like maybe you just give them rent for $1 because, your rent isn't enough to, instead of subsidizing the insurance, just drop the rent to $1 or whatever. I don't know how you want to work that internally, but
Well, like I said, when we did the financial feasibility models with First Children's Finance, we put in the cost of insurance, we put in our proposed rents, and it still was financially feasible, so I think we're okay.
still okay? All right.
I do have questions on the insurance portion. There are some certificates we are requiring which they don't need, like directors and officers liability. unless they have a board of directors, they do not need that insurance. And I'm wondering if we are over-regulating them to be in our space with, like, requiring auto insurance, unless it has some veil for us.
The auto insurance wouldn't be for owned autos, it would be for non-owned autos. This would be for the daycare provider or their volunteer or their employee to run and grab some diapers from the store.
Yeah, but is that a veil for the city to protect us, or are we
Yes.
requiring something extra?
No,
that we
that
don't?
hired and non-owned auto goes on every piece of business we write. Because it covers the excess of that employee going out and running into someone. They're in a hurry, and you don't know what kind of insurance that employee has. You know, the state minimum is 30/60. You know, God help us if that employee only has 30,000 of coverage, it bumps right up to their employer after that.
Okay.
And from the employer, back to the city. So that hired and non-owned is maybe like $150 a year. That's not a big item on that list. Does that answer your question?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah.
I just don't want to over-regulate them because they're in the pod when we're not doing the same for others who are not in the pod.
But we're not on the hook for the ones that
So
aren't
was
in
my
our
question,
property.
is this
Yeah.
insurance we need to protect us or not?
Well, and it may require a bit of a review on all of the city spaces that you're renting to private entities. Just because this is a daycare doesn't mean there aren't liabilities with some of the other facilities that you lease back. Minnesota Music Hall of Fame isn't going to have the same liabilities that a daycare will. But Turner Gymnastics, again, not as much as a daycare because you're not dealing with infants, but you still have the opportunity for injuries. So I think there should be some conformity or some kind of rhyme or reason to how you go about your insurance requirements for your other tenants, for other city properties. But we'll stick to daycares for today. Professional liability is in there. That's pretty much standard on all daycare policies. You got a lot of kids that need meds. What happens if you double dose or fail to dose? Those are all professional liability type claims. There's some coverage in there for loss of use, so that if there is a covered loss in there, that the daycare can afford financially to weather the storm while the place gets fixed up. Most small business owners know what I'm talking about with loss of use and business income coverage. I just sort of set the bar high on this. I sort of racked my brain with every possible coverage that a daycare would need, keeping in mind that whatever isn't covered by that could come back to the city. That was kind of my rationale,
How
so.
much property inside of this building are we going to have? Much of any?
Really, all we're providing in their space is a refrigerator and a microwave or convection oven, just some appliances so they can prepare meals, but they have to, it's basically an empty room otherwise.
Okay, wasn't sure. So today, we're not in any shape to approve this.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe we should table this, work on a few of these items and bring it back next month.
Do you have a subcommittee for this lease, or are you all kind of taking it on as a group?
I think we could have our attorney kind of look it back over, and just based on some of the information that we discussed today, we kind of have some starting points on what we need to kind of look through. And I don't know that we need to approve this today. We could bring this back next month.
I think we can table it. That's why I wanted to start working on it early, because I anticipated this discussion, and construction is scheduled to wrap up the end of August, and then, so I'm thinking we could have providers in there October 1st starting their business, so we do need to have this ready to go so we can start leasing up, but
Yeah, you're within a month of needing to get some leases going, probably, right? You don't want to be signing leases in September if you want October occupancy, right?
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if we have the tenants already and they know that this is coming.
Yeah, I mean, I may want to have the lease in place so they can have access to the building September 1st to go in and set up their space and then start taking children in October. So, I don't want to wait until the last minute.
Right.
Well, they're going to need time to go out and actually get a insurance quote that's tailored to what they're doing. There's a lot to be discussed yet on this insurance topic. I included 100,000, I think, of, is that what I did, Heather? Of personal property. There was a tenants improvements and betterments is any kind of building alterations that the tenant makes. So if the tenant goes in and puts $10,000 into the building, that would still be theirs to insure should there ever be a loss. But the personal property, I think I threw 100,000 in there as a number. That might be 4 times what they would ever have for toys and diapers and bottles and, whatever else their contents are. So again.
So that would be like a renter's insurance.
Well, it's just if you see in the requirements, they're responsible for their own personal property, and that's what it would be. But I guesstimated 100 grand, and that might be
Yeah, they
way
don't have a
overboard.
dollar amount in here. They just say
I
personal
did on my
property.
quote that you and I did.
Okay.
That quote that I emailed you.
Okay.
Could we see that at some point, like line item coverage?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
I can't remember if I scanned and emailed the whole thing to you, or if I just summarized it in an
I think you
email.
summarized it in an email, but
It was a long email. I do remember that.
yeah, and we went back and forth a little bit, so
So I'll offer a motion then to table this item for more information. And thanks, Tom, for coming. Well,
You bet.
appreciate it.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I do have some more. There's a lot of other stuff in there besides insurance. And the stuff that costs money.
Right.
Utility, how are you going to do the utilities?
utilities, that's one of the things we need to change. We are going to pay the utilities.
Okay, so we'll pick up.
So
and
they
then
have
charge
that
it
in
out.
here incorrectly, so that's
Okay.
one of the changes we
Yeah,
need to
'cause
make.
I saw other things besides utilities. I mean, we don't need to have 4 different people trying to shovel the snow out of there. There should be a single snow removal
We will
contractor.
be mowing the lawn, we will be doing the snow removal. So is it saying that the
Page 711D.
renter has to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, and I had told them that, but
Would it be possible to, who wrote this whole
the
contract?
city attorney.
The city attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to have the city attorney come to one of our meetings and just kind of walk us through this whole thing? Okay, as I read that, I mean, I've had a fair amount of experience with rentals, both as a renter and a rentee, or whatever you call it. And this is more confusing than what I've seen before for something that isn't that big a deal.
It almost looked like it was probably a template that he might have taken from
Well-
some other business or,
Well, yeah, I mean, did the city attorney just fire up his computer and get a good copy of something and send it to us?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't invite him to attend this meeting because I anticipated there would be things we need to change. So I think we'll make some changes, bring it back, and then have him come to the next meeting.
Well, just out of curiosity, how do you handle things like, say, at Broadway House, example? I mean, do they pay a flat rent every month, and then this city has all the stuff that the city does built into that rent?
Yes.
Okay. But then there was something else in this document about some other stuff later on. It was in addition to the rent that they pay. Now, I mean, that was not clear in my mind what that was all about.
I'm not sure specifically what you're asking me.
Well, there was something in there about some additional fees from time to time.
Yeah, I had a question on repairs, like if the AC goes out it appears that they would have to pay for the AC
Okay,
repair.
yeah, that's another thing I had
Yeah, that kind of.
gone over with the city
hit it
attorney.
there.
I think that they need to take another look at this because they have the lessee responsible for things that I had told them the lessor would be taking care of. I didn't get this until yesterday afternoon, so I really haven't had a chance to look it over and
And I think, is this something that we could, if there is an urgency of trying to get this really put together, that we could have a special meeting or a work session on in between, once we have some time to kind of go through it. And, I feel like it's a good first attempt, but that there's definitely some work to do. I don't know that we need to form a subcommittee to do that unless you guys feel like that would be helpful, but otherwise, I think if it gets kind of cleaned up with some of the things that we talked about, we can probably go from there. It's dependent on the urgency of how quickly you want to get this.
yeah, I think staff can work with the city attorney on getting a revision made. And I think we're okay putting it on the July meeting. If it's not approved at that meeting, we may need to do a special meeting.
Okay.
Because I just don't want it to drag on
Correct.
month after month, but
Or, the
I
other
think we're
option-
okay for now.
You do, okay. Otherwise, as you're working on this, if you think that, maybe we better get this approved now, just call a special meeting. And
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we only need 4 or 5 of us to get it approved, so. But I do think Tom's right, we need to have that attorney here, hopefully personally here, but if nothing else by Zoom.
It'll probably be Zoom. I don't think
I
he
thought he
even
was supposed
comes
to
to
appear
city
once in a while, though.
council
He hasn't
person.
Well, maybe
appeared.
for council, he'll come at budget time and things like that, but.
I have a couple questions. Was he the one determining, like the term of the lease being 2 years? Those kinds
No.
of things that,
No, that, Chris and I had talked, we had a sample lease from another pod model facility. They did a 3-year lease. We weren't necessarily comfortable asking them to commit to 3 years, but we thought 2 years was a good,
yeah, and that can go both ways too, where maybe it's not a fit for 3 years either. But yeah, I would agree that 2 years should be probably the max 1 to 2 year lease, especially starting out, trying to get a feel for it. But I'm just wondering where, some of those type of things came from. And then when Tom discusses, there's going to be bills to pay and utilities to pay, I just want to be clear that the goal here is not to create an additional source of income for the EDA or the city. It's to help our community solve
this
a problem.
won't be
We're
a
not
money
looking at
maker.
making money,
This won't be a money
which
maker.
is why
We're
rent's
trying to
low and
break
costs
even.
are covered. And
Yeah, it may not even break even some months if, but
but as long as we're meeting a need that can justify those losses, that's the goal here. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any additional discussion? We do have a motion and a second to table the Westridge Place Lease Agreement. Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Good discussion. Item number 7.1, Walmart Community Grant.
all right, as you know, we've been applying for grants to help with the cost of our project at Westridge Place. Staff submitted an application for the Walmart Community Grant on May 1st, 2023. We were notified on May 23rd that we were selected to receive a $2,000 grant to support our project. And so we have received the check already, but we just need to officially accept it.
Shouldn't that be a resolution, Nicole?
It's going to,
Oh, okay.
this one, yeah.
I'll offer a resolution to accept the Walmart Community Grant in the amount of $2,000.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, Director Riggle, please call the roll.
Commissioner Kalk?
Yes.
Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
Commissioner Markgraf? Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
Commissioner Henn?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion does carry. And that's great to see. Thanks for submitting
Yes.
that. Thank you, Heather. All right, item number 7.2, Westridge Place donations.
just note we received a few additional donations in from our local business community during the month of May. $100 from Radiant Skin Studio and Massage, and $100 from New Ulm Real Estate. Total of $200 received in May.
I'll offer a resolution to that effect.
So moved. Second, rather.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Resolution, donations or resolutions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
How are we kind of spreading the word that we're looking for donations, looking for funds? Who are we working with on that?
Right now, the child care team divided up all the local businesses and have been working on contacting them personally to talk about the project and request a donation. We are going to be doing some future fundraising efforts over the summer. I'm working with Sid Signs right now on getting a mock-up of what the donor wall will look like, and I want to put that on a new fundraising flyer to show the businesses that have already donated, and then have some blank ones that say your name here kind of thing, to show them that they are going to get recognition in the building, similar to what the CTE Center did. They have a donor wall right when you walk in. And then we have an event we're planning for August to show a short 30-minute film on the child care crisis. And we'll be talking at that event too about our Westridge Place project and asking for donations. We're timing that. I think it's August 21st is the date we landed on. It'll coincide with construction wrapping up and the facility getting ready to open. Of course, when the facility opens, we'll do a ribbon cutting and get, another push for donations at that time. So we're just trying to keep it in the news and continue letting people know that we could use help with the cost. And
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, Director Briggle, please call the roll.
Commissioner Kalk,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Markgraf,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Hen,
Yes.
President Bedker.
Yes, that motion does carry. Our final item today is item number 8.1, Economic Development Activity Report.
All right. You have the report in front of you. Here, I did have in here Westridge Place Rehab started June 5th. I thought I had that in here somewhere. Note, commercial property rehab loan program, one application was received and approved in the amount of $21,450. Two small business loans closed, and both in the amount of $10,000 during the month of May. And then you just see my monthly recap. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So the small business incentive grant says no activity. It means nobody's applied. Are there pending ones out there?
I have one that just came through. That'll be our last one for the year. The $80,000 will be gone once that grant is paid out. I just got all of her receipts yesterday, and we'll be paying that out soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we didn't receive a report from Newbrook this month, so they're
Correct, I was going to mention, yes, I will mention
not on
that
the
as well.
agenda. But they had a presentation at the community center last week that Chris and I attended, and Andrea was there, Les was there, Michelle was there, kind of rolling, and that was in the paper today, rolling out their potential incubator project that they're working on.
It was pretty impressive. They did a nice job with it.
And then on the other side, county met with Georgia Steering Committee met. So they looked at potentially two developers. They'll call another meeting hopefully by the end of the month or early July to make a decision on which developer they would like to recommend to city council. Then city council would make that recommendation to the county for the county to approve moving forward with the project. So hopefully by the end of the month, we should have a little more information on which direction we're going to go.
So are the developers looking for funds for demolition?
Potentially.
Can say.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, even if we were going to go through a deed grant, if we do a deed grant, city and county would have to figure out how to come up with 50% of that. of that funding. So we'll see what that looks like. They have to, both developers are going to submit letters of intent that kind of show what their timeline and what they're planning on as incentives and stuff like that, what they really want to do with the project. So once we get those, then that Georgia Steering Committee will make a decision on which direction, and then the city and county will have to figure out how to potentially split those costs and what those costs actually are.
Well, it's kind of exciting that we went 20 years of nobody wanting that property, and now we have two. So let's hope something comes out of that.
Yeah.
Sounds like both developers are ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get the information worked out and kind of fine tune a couple of things, I mean, they're ready. We're ready. Everybody's ready. So
Yeah, and then we'll just have to jump through a couple hoops with the state historical preservation. Fairly easy things to do, but we have to make sure that once we get them the plan, how long it's going to take them to approve said plan so we can get the ball rolling.
And move that Georgia sign to Terry Sweeney's properties.
Yes. Yeah, and that is one of the, to either save the sign, incorporate it in the design, or, have, a dedicated plaque somewhere just documenting that sign existed. So we'll have to figure some of that stuff out.
Be fun to find some place for that, but boy, that's
Huge
gonna be
sign.
hard.
Big sign.
It's a big sign.
very good.
I move to accept the Economic Development Activity Report for May 2023 activities.
A second?
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, that motion does carry. With no additional business, this meeting this morning is adjourned.